Okie dokie. I really went all in on the Ames idea yesterday. Man, Ames for James. Let's just get through these, shall we? Oh, this one is actually one of the only ones that's not related to that, but anyway. I really enjoyed the Sean Carroll Sam Harris episode. I'd previously not liked a lot of the stuff I'd heard him say on certain topics, and even less the way he said them. But with Sam there to bridge the gap, I believe I was able to see what he was saying for what it really is, and I agree with a lot more of it than I thought. I even think he was right about Sam's surface disagreement with Hume's guillotine. Although I also believe that it's a case where neither one of them is saying the thing the other one thinks is wrong. But hey ho. Although I also believe that it's a case where neither one of them is saying the thing the other one thinks is wrong. But hey ho, there we go. Okay, they're basically misunderstanding each other. He also gave a name to what I believe to be the description for what we see at the quantum level. What I believe to be the description for what we see at the quantum level, superdeterminism. But obviously he's a fucking physicist and I'm a fucking moron. So, but there are some physicists who believe what I think is more likely. But I don't know. And I wonder if the many worlds interpretation is in fact compatible with this, even though he would obviously disagree, as he thinks that they really exist, the multiple universes. But if we were to take the many worlds the many worlds interpretation to be semi-real, if we were to take the many worlds to be semi-real, only one exists in our block of space-time, which is something that I also like to talk about. I like space-time blocks. Space-time block, it's the thing. Brian Greene did a YouTube video on it. But they're all possible within the confines of what we can possibly know, limited by quantum theory. So, yeah. They're all equally possible, but only one of them is the actual one. And it's already determined, but we'll never know. So to us, they're all equally possible, right? I don't fucking know. So I think one of the main communication roadblocks or language barriers that gets in the way of suicidal people and people who want to help them from being able to understand, each other, is that those that want to help, know that life is worth living because they experience it as such, and can't imagine how anyone could fail to see all the beauty and wonder in the world. And the suicidalists see the exact reverse, and similarly know what they see to be true. They see all the horror and injustice and ugliness in the world. But what they fail to realise is that the reason they see the same world so differently is because they don't realise they're literally not looking at the same things. They are seeing the same world in completely different ways, which then looks to them like they must be seeing actually different worlds. And what they fail to realise even more is that they can both be made to see the world through the other's eyes if they only decided to look at it with the same aims. As an experiment, a member of each group could be made to spend a week documenting every example of things which make up the world of the opposite person's worldview, the suicidalists looking exclusively for any instance of beauty, joy, positivity or potential, whilst the non-comprehendables, unable to comprehend why anyone would be suicidal, look exclusively for any and every instance of injustice, inequality, evil, unfairness and ugliness they can. What should become clear, if they really are able to adopt the aim properly, is that the way they view the world completely changes as a result of how they set out to interpret it, and furthermore, that both views have their utility. As little as I like to go on about Aristotle, what should become clear is that some form of his view of virtues applies very well here. The person who can only recognise the evil in the world has no motivation to fix it, or understand its potential, of the world, not of the evil. And the person who spends no time pondering whether there is anything other than good in the world lets gross misdeeds go unchecked and fails to see how it could be improved. And I think in reality we all know this to a certain degree. Before I decided I was going to be looking for an encyclopedia, I knew that encyclopedias existed and were there somewhere. I just didn't know where or in how much abundance. Likewise, people who fail to see any goodness in the world, if pressed, would likely admit that it exists, but will probably view it as pointless or erroneous to look for it, that it is somehow less important. What needs to change is their view of what is valuable to look for in the world, and not to forget about all the things they've noticed to be wrong in the world, but to balance it with all the good that is and could be. So really, I think it's just a matter of confirmation bias. So if we're coming from a point of thinking that there is more evil in the world, or just more things wrong in the world than there are things right, then your confirmation bias will cause you to find evidence in support of that and ignore all the evidence. It's not even ignoring It's definitely not consciously ignoring the evidence. It's just you're unable to find the evidence that doesn't support your claim because you're not aware, you're not open to the awareness of it. Anyway, so I think I'm going to write my book now. I think I'm going to start doing it. It was a nice little piece this to add to it. Obviously, I'll write about this in a minute, but in the case of the encyclopedia, well, a couple of things. In the case of the encyclopedia, it's not that I was just looking for encyclopedia. It's more that you're kind of looking. I was looking to buy an encyclopedia, so it's like the action. So maybe if you're looking to have fun rather than looking for fun, right? Maybe that's the better way to actually implement an aim. Secondly, it might not be as simple as just deciding that that's what you're going to do. It might be. It might actually be as simple as... So maybe the documenting idea, I think that might work quite effectively if you're actually... Because then you're forced to... And let's say you have to come up with at least 50 examples, right? Because if you're given an actual number, then you're not likely to just come up with one and say that's the only one I can find. Yeah, you might have to broaden your criteria. Anyway, but if it's not, and I'll write about this in a minute, if it's not that simple, then I reckon something like therapy, CBT, all those things, medication, will probably make it easier to actually achieve it. The only reason not to commit suicide: 1, this is just bullet points. The reason, open brackets, everything wrong with everything wrong with other reasons, close brackets. The next one, why we need a reason, open brackets, why suicide is rightfully so appealing, close brackets. Another one, subjective experience. Another one, aims, how we see the world and how we can change this. Another one, the way you go into it determines how you'll come out. If you go in, open brackets, if you go in with the mentality that life is boring, then confirmation bias will find all the evidence in the world that your initial prediction is correct, and no evidence to the contrary. Another one, why this doesn't mean we should all be manipulative psychopaths. Another one, the place for therapy and pharmacological intervention. Open brackets, some of us use some of use more inclined. What the fuck? Okay, some of us more inclined to certain biological and physical and psychological traits than others as a result of our genetics and upbringing. Open bracket again. I'm reluctant to give too many examples because it lends itself to some people who are looking for any opportunity within this book to denounce it all as irrelevant to them because they are the exception and therefore a lost cause. It may be the case that changing your aims isn't as simple as deciding to look for an encyclopedia. We may need extensive therapy in order to change them. And then another one, placebo. And then separate thing. This was just about what the book would have to be. The book would have to be a free ebook with an open invitation to all publishing companies to turn it into a purchasable paper copy, which they can try to profit from should they choose, but cannot claim ownership of. So basically, this is the thing that annoys me with all of Sam's and Jordan Peterson's things. If they believe that it's helpful to the world and can really help people, especially Jordan's stuff, obviously, then once you've made enough money from it, you should be... I don't deny that it requires some money to to make your money back, but once you have, come on, just get it for free. And I know there's probably problems with, some people paid for it, so now I can't. They'd feel cheated for me to give it out for free now after they've paid for it, but I just think it's wrong to, people, especially Jordan's stuff that's supposedly helping people get out of their depression and stuff. And obviously, yes, it's worth that much to those people, but at the same time, it's not. It stops being that valuable to Jordan, I think, or that necessary for him to make money from it. I don't know. Perhaps then the best advice for your aims, we need a better word, perhaps objects of focus or centre of attention, or just something to do with awareness, is to be truly open-minded. It's kind of like your awareness cues, I don't know. Is to be truly open-minded, to not embark upon any assessment with a pre-existing inclination, although I think this is harder to adopt and implement, so to have some specific features to be searching for is preferable. Another good thing to be looking out for is fun, but again, I've just said maybe looking to have fun. Yeah. Book chapter on another chapter would be good and evil, and for the symbiosis and positive sum rules that I've put out for that, for good. The way movements such as veganism, which is an objectively morally superior outlook, will be able to be realised and actualised among the masses is by tailoring the incentives so that it is easier to be a vegan than not to, which is basically what Sam said, but anyway. The current state we are in makes it much, much harder to be a vegan or vegetarian than to be a meat eater. Now, obviously, innovations like clean or cultured meat are the most ideal solutions to this problem, and everything should be done to ensure it is implemented as quickly and safely as possible. However, there are also social contributions which cannot be ignored. Now, I'm the least well-educated person on the topic of slavery I know. At least on the topic of slavery I know of, but that won't stop me using it to meet my own demands, like a slave. I imagine the way slavery came to be eradicated was not simply to abolish it through government, but to make it harder for someone to be a slave owner than not to be. The incentives were such that it was in each person's interest not to be a slave owner. It should be clear that a big part of this would have been the increased stigma towards those who were slave owners, but this was not the only factor. It would have been far harder to abolish slavery during a time where the advancements in agriculture and other industrial ventures were lacking, and slave labour was the most effective way to get jobs done cheaply. Obviously, there was a huge runover in the time from when slavery was no longer necessary for certain tasks to have been completed, although of course slavery was still wrong. It just would have seemed less so to the people who wanted a pyramid built, because how else was it going to happen? So in the times when, things that people wanted pyramids built and there weren't machinery to build pyramids, obviously it would have been harder to convince those people not to have slaves. Likewise with, but even then it was still obviously wrong. Just harder to convince them of why. Likewise with meat eating. We are at a point where it isn't essential for humans to get a huge portion of their caloric intake from dead animals, and this has been the case for some time. But in order to make the shift, it may take some time longer before the path of least resistance, which seems to be an almost universal law, is that of the vegan. Another thing about these aims is that you can change them depending on the circumstances to better suit the situation. Once I had an encyclopedia, I didn't need to look for it anymore. Well, actually, that was a bad example, but anyway. Or when I was swimming in a swimming pool, it would have been stupid to be looking for an encyclopedia there. But I still had it, because it had become a subconscious thing then. So, but the aim, you can have a different... Never mind, I'm just going to let it go. So you don't have to be looking for fun at a funeral. You can be, but it doesn't have to be your main aim. You can have main aims and sub-aims, and they can change places. Hierarchies. Oh my god, Jordan Peterson. Hierarchies. Aim hierarchies. Aim. Great. People always rave about the benefits of cold showers and less so, but still some people promote hot showers. What if the best shower is a tepid one? Perhaps the best effects of cold showers are caused by the reduction of inflammation, which is becoming more and more clearly the cause of all sorts of diseases. But I imagine a mild temperature, room temperature probably, is even less likely to cause any sort of inflammation than a shower that is too cold. I could easily be very wrong about this. But yeah, I feel like just have it'll feel cold, but not freezing cold. Right? I had one of those the other day. Pretty nice. For anyone who would refuse to ever eat cultured meat and would continue to eat farmed meat, I think the morality of such a decision is almost as simple as the following analogy. It would be like having two cows in front of you, one that recently died and one that's alive, and deciding you weren't going to eat the meat of the dead cow and instead kill the living cow so that you could eat that one. That's what it's like. Yeah? So just eat some fun cultured meat, you little bitch. Alright. This has been me... for now. Now it's a different me. And now it's a different me. Now, having said that, it's a different me. Oh, no, it's a different me. Alright, bye now.